Shalom, I'm Nama Rue. This is my husband, Rabbi David Rue. And we're going to talk today about Shmita and what can we do during Shmita, like as far as agriculture, or what if it has to do with plants that don't produce food?
All right. So, as you read through all the psukim of Shmita, it says things like "Sadcha tizrע," you will not plant your vineyard. "Karmecha tizmor," you won't plant your field. You won't prune your vineyard. "Tzviach ketzircha lo tiktzor," the things that grow on their own from your field you will not harvest. "Yes, invei nizarecha lo tiktzor," and your vineyard you will not harvest. So it seems from these pasukim alone that we might be limited, the limitations of what we can do might be limited to those things that are generally productive food activities. However, there's another way of looking at it, and that is that all work of the land. It says the land's supposed to rest. Shabbos haaretz yeh lechem. It will be a resting of the land for you. So maybe it's everything to do with the land. So the Yirushalmi says, "V'ken haya Rabbi Shimon ben Gmaliel אומר, נוטעין אילן רק בשביעית." That Rabbi Shimon ben Gmaliel says, and also Rabbi Shimon ben Gmaliel says, you're allowed to plant barren trees, meaning non-fruit producing trees during the Shemitah year. The Rash Sirilאו, he was born just before the expulsion from Spain, like in the year of the expulsion. He was born in Spain and his family fled to Turkey when he was a baby. He wrote a commentary on the Yirushalmi, and the entire Yirushalmi. It hasn't all been printed yet, although we still have the Ksav Yad and the entire thing. He explains this statement, "Shlo asra Torah ela למאכל." The Torah only prohibited those things that are for food. Doma l'sidcha lo tizrע, similar to the will not plant your field. Shazri'a haochel, because this is the planting for food. V'deme lo tizmor, and that's similar to not pruning שהוא, הכרם, which is the vineyard. So he's saying anything, so it would apparently also include flowers and so on, would be including this. It's only trees and other things that produce food. However, the Rambam paskins, ein notim בשביעית אפילו אילן רק, you're not allowed to plant during the Shemitah year, even a tree that doesn't produce anything, even a barren tree. So, in general, when the Bavli is silent, the Rambam paskins like the Yirushalmi. So why is he apparently here paskening against it? The Kורkוס, who wrote a commentary on the entire Rambam. Again, it all hasn't been printed. He was also one of these people that was born shortly before the expulsion from Spain, and his family fled to Turkey. It's interesting to note the Turkish Jewish community was it existed before the expulsion from Spain, but there were so many people from Spain that fled there that it became an entirely Sephardi community, and no remnant of the Adot Mizrach community. The entire community, for instance, spoke Ladino, whereas in Morocco there was a Ladino-speaking community and there was an Arabic-speaking community. So he says that he explains, "Ein mציתים את האור בחיצת הקנים מפני שהיא עבודה." We're not allowed to light a flame in the field because it's working the field. Rashbag matir. And Reb Shimon Gmaliel allowed it. This is a quote. This is the previous section in the Yirushalmi. V'ken haya Rashbag אומר נוטעין אילן רק בשביעית. And also, Reb Shimon Gmaliel said that you can plant a barren tree in the Shemitah year. Im ken mashma de rabbanan pliga elei. From the fact that we put these two statements together, that Rabbi Shimon ben Gmaliel allowed us to burn these twigs in the field, which would create smoke, which would drive away undesirable insects and so on. That would be an avoda in the field. and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel allowed it, so too Reb Shimon ben Gamliel allowed planting barren trees. So we know in the first case the rabbis disagreed, the Rabbanan disagreed, and in the machlokas between Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and the Rabbanan, the halacha is like the Rabbanan. So too in the second case, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel allowed this, but because the conjunctive is v'ken, and also, and similarly, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel allowed this, just like he allowed the first thing, and just like in the first thing the rabbis disagreed, so too in this they disagreed, and that the Greek Corkus is explaining is the reason why the Rambam prohibits the planting of these trees in the Shemitah year. So,
can I think we might have touched on this, but it's maybe related, and maybe we're going to do it more, but like, I think, for example, you can't weed your agricultural field unless like the important plants are going to die off. Is that correct?
Unless trees are going to die off. Plants that are annual trees, we don't really care if they die off.
Right.
Right, because they're going to die anyway this year. So they die a little earlier, a little later, that doesn't matter. But a tree that's a multi-year investment, it would, if it would be damaged, that
but
would
what about like?
But we're gonna have entire classes on this, so let's
hold
off on that. Now, all the poskim to our time, asking like the Rambam. There's a debate between the Yirachashulchan, for instance, and the Chazon Ish as to whether this is a deraisa or derabanan, whether you're not allowed to plant these trees, non-fruit bearing trees or not. But even though fruit bearing trees, non-fruit bearing trees, we're not allowed to plant, 18 en behem kedusha, wood does not have any sanctity of Shmita. This is Gemara in Sukkah Daf Mem. Detanya, ale kanim ve'ale gafanim shegavavan lechova al pnei asadi laktan leachila yesh behem mishum kedusha shvis, laktan le'etzim en behem mishum kedusha shvis. So, kanim are reeds and the prunings of the vine that we've gathered up on the Shemitah year. If I gathered them to eat, like vine shoots and stuff like that, were often eaten. And, in Chinese food, we have all sorts of things, bamboo shoots and so on. If they were gathered to eat, then they have the sanctity of Shemitah year. If I gathered them as wood to burn, then they don't have the sanctity of Shemitah year. So wood intrinsically doesn't. Because of this, Reb Shlomo Auerbach paskins that you're allowed to buy schach in the normal way, aravos and lavim that were harvested on Shemitah, because these are essentially wood. They're not a food product. Since they're not a food product, they have no sanctity of Shemitah. And so, as we discussed earlier, if you're buying your esrog, which is a food product, I will pay him for the lulav, the hadassim, the arabos, and along with it, I'll get the esrog. And this is one of the mutter ways that you can use for buying fruits on the Shemitah year.
What about like pine nuts are edible? Pine needles, you can make medicine like from tea or extract.
Well, let's not talk about medicine because medicine isn't food.
Okay.
But if pine nuts, like they are a fruit of a tree.
Right.
So they would be prohibited. But if I cut down a pine tree,
then
right,
the wood
wood doesn't have kedusha.
Right, but like cedar, I can't think of. We don't eat cedar.
We don't eat cedar.
So that you can't plant. And
you can't plant these things.
Okay.
Whether it's from Torah law or rabbinic law, that isn't clear. As I said, it's machlokas between the Yirachashulchan and the Chazon Ish.
But for sure, you can't plant oak trees.
Right. You can't plant any tree.
Okay.
Right? But if you can harvest wood
without worrying.
For wood, if it's harvested for wood and not for food, and so too with lulavim and esrogim and so on.
Gotcha.
All right. That's it for planting trees right now, and soon we'll be on to other subjects.
Thank you.